Before there was Zeus, before there were gods, before man could dream of Olympus, there was only chaos. Not chaos in the sense of mere disorder, but chaos as a yawning void, an abyss without shape, without direction, without meaning. Out of this void came the first sparks of being, the primal forces that would weave existence itself. If you are listening now, you are about to embark on a journey not just through myths, but through the very architecture of human imagination, the story of Greek mythology in its entirety. And before we dive deeper, if you believe in seeking truth, wisdom, and the power of stories that shaped civilizations, make sure to like this video and subscribe to Truth by Philosophers, because together, we are not merely telling myths, we are uncovering the soul of humanity. From chaos came Gaia, the earth vast and nurturing, the eternal mother. Then rose Nyx the night, mysterious and boundless, and Eros, the principle of attraction, the force that draws one thing toward another, without which no life could form. This was not yet religion nor narrative. It was philosophy disguised as myth, a way for ancient Greeks to grapple with the question, why is there something rather than nothing? By giving form to nothingness, they built the foundation for all future stories. Out of Gaia's womb arose Uranus, the sky stretching above her, and together they became the first great pair. Their union gave birth to the Titans, the Cyclopes, and the hecatoncheires, beings of unimaginable power. Yet even in this first family of gods, the story was not of harmony, but of tension and betrayal. Uranus, fearing the strength of his children, cast them into the depths of Tartarus, imprisoning them within the earth itself. The world of Greek mythology was born not from peace, but from struggle. Gaia, in agony at her children's imprisonment, sought vengeance. She gave her son Cronus a sickle and urged him to act. Cronus, the youngest Titan, ambushed his father Uranus and castrated him, casting the severed flesh into the sea. From the blood spilled on the earth arose the Furies, spirits of vengeance, and from the foam of the sea was born Aphrodite, goddess of love and beauty. Thus, in Greek thought, love was born from violence and beauty emerged from chaos. The Greeks were unflinching. They saw the universe as a place where creation and destruction were bound together. Cronus then ruled as king of the Titans. His reign was called the Golden Age, an era when humanity lived free of toil, without suffering, without hunger. Yet Cronus himself was tormented by prophecy. It was foretold that one of his children would overthrow him, just as he had overthrown Uranus. To prevent this fate, he devoured each child the moment they were born. Imagine it, the devouring of one's own offspring, the cycle of violence repeated, the paranoia of kingship in divine form. But his wife Rhea could not bear it. When her youngest child Zeus was born, she hid him away in a cave in Crete, giving Cronus a stone wrapped in swaddling cloths instead. Cronus, blind in his suspicion, swallowed the stone whole, thinking it was his son. Zeus grew in secret, nurtured by nymphs, guarded by the curettes who clashed their shields to cover his cries. When he reached manhood, he returned to challenge his father. With the aid of Metis, goddess of cunning, Zeus tricked Cronus into drinking a potion that forced him to vomit up his devoured children, Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, and Poseidon. Freed from their prison, they joined Zeus in the great war against the Titans, the titanomachy. For 10 years the battle raged. The Titans, led by Cronus, fought from Mount Othrys, the Olympians, led by Zeus, from Mount Olympus. The clash was cosmic, the hurling of mountains, the shattering of earth. The Cyclopes forged thunderbolts for Zeus, a trident for Poseidon, and a helm of darkness for Hades. With these weapons, the Olympians triumphed. The Titans were cast into Tartarus, imprisoned deep within the abyss, guarded by the hecatoncheires. And Zeus, wielder of the thunderbolt, ascended as king of the gods. But power, as the Greeks knew, is never absolute, never eternal. For even Zeus faced challenges to his rule. The first came from the monstrous Typhon, a serpent giant born of Gaia and Tartarus, created to avenge the Titans. Typhon was said to have 100 dragon heads, eyes flashing fire, voices that echoed like beasts and gods alike. When he struck, the earth quaked. For a moment, Zeus himself was defeated, stripped of his sinews, left helpless. But Hermes and Pan restored him, and in a final confrontation, Zeus hurled his thunderbolts and buried Typhon beneath Mount Etna, whose eruptions the Greeks believed to be the monster's rage. In this myth, we see the eternal Greek belief that even the gods must struggle to maintain order, and that chaos forever threatens to return. With the Titans chained and monsters subdued, the rule of Zeus began in earnest. He divided the world among his brothers. Poseidon took the sea, Hades the underworld, and Zeus the sky, keeping Olympus as the seat of his reign. Hera became his queen, though theirs was a union plagued by jealousy and betrayal. For Zeus, though king, was not faithful. He took mortal lovers, goddesses, and nymphs, fathering heroes and demigods who would shape the myths to come. From his affairs came Perseus, Hercules, Helen of Troy, and countless others, each a bridge between divine and human worlds. Yet if the Olympians ruled from above, the question remained, what of humanity itself? Where did mankind come from? According to one myth, Prometheus, a titan who sided with Zeus during the Great War, shaped man from clay, and Athena breathed life into him. Prometheus, whose name means forethought, loved mankind fiercely. He taught them arts, crafts, and survival. But when Zeus withheld fire, Prometheus defied him, stealing flame from Olympus and gifting it to mortals. Fire, the symbol of knowledge, of technology, of civilization. With it, humans became powerful. But Zeus, enraged, punished both man and benefactor. To humanity he sent Pandora, the first woman, carrying a jar filled with evils. When she opened it, suffering, sickness, and death spread across the earth, leaving only hope inside. Prometheus himself was bound to a rock, where an eagle devoured his liver each day, only for it to grow back by night. In eternal torment, here lies one of the deepest truths of Greek mythology. The gods gave, but always with limits. To be human was to live between gift and curse, to bear knowledge but also suffering, to hope but also to die. In Prometheus's defiance we glimpse the human spirit, the refusal to accept divine boundaries, the will to seek more, even at great cost. The age of the gods, however, was not isolated. It flowed seamlessly into the age of heroes. The Olympians, immortal and unchanging, became the backdrop against which mortals rose and fell. For the Greeks, the hero's story was the true mirror of life. Take Hercules, son of Zeus, cursed with madness by Hera, who slew his own family and sought redemption through 12 labors. His tale is one of strength but also of suffering, of atonement through struggle. Or Perseus, born of Zeus and Danae, who slew the Gorgon Medusa and freed Andromeda, proving that cunning and courage could overcome monstrosity. Or Theseus, who braved the labyrinth and the Minotaur, a symbol of confronting the beast within man. Each hero's myth reflected the struggles of existence, the need to endure pain, to face trials, to create meaning from chaos. In Greek mythology, gods were not distant perfection. They were mirrors of human flaws magnified. Zeus was lustful, Hera jealous, Poseidon vengeful, Ares bloodthirsty, Athena calculating, Aphrodite seductive. The Greeks did not imagine flawless beings. They imagined divine archetypes of human passions. To worship them was not to kneel before ideals, but to acknowledge the forces within and beyond themselves. In this, mythology was not mere story, but philosophy in narrative form. And what of fate? Above even Zeus, there were the Moirai, the Fates, Clotho who spun the thread of life, Lachesis who measured it, and Atropos who cut it. No god, no hero, no mortal could escape them. For the Greeks, fate was the ultimate truth, that every being, even divine, is bound by necessity. Yet within that necessity there was choice. Heroes could not choose their destiny. but they could choose how to face it. Thus, the essence of Greek mythology was not escape from fate, but dignity within it. This first chapter of our journey has taken us from chaos to cosmos, from titans to olympians, from the birth of gods to the dawn of heroes. Yet the story does not end here, for mythology is not only about creation, but about collapse, not only about gods, but about men. In the next chapter, we will explore the Trojan War, the Odyssey, and the myths that shaped the very foundation of Western thought. These are not just stories. They are reflections of the eternal human condition. Love and rage, loyalty and betrayal, courage and ruin. But before we continue, remember, mythology is more than entertainment. It is the whisper of ancestors, the attempt of the ancients to answer life's greatest questions. If you are finding meaning in this journey, make sure you subscribe to Truth by Philosophers. Because the myths you hear are not merely about gods long gone, they are about you, about us, and about the timeless truths that still govern the human soul. The age of gods gave way to the age of heroes, and nowhere is this transition more vivid, more unforgettable, than in the tale of Troy. For if the Olympians revealed the passions of the divine, the Trojan War revealed the tragedies of men. And yet, it was not merely men who fought, but gods themselves, shaping destiny on the battlefield. This is where Greek mythology reaches its peak, where stories of love, betrayal, rage, and honor intertwine into the greatest epic of the ancient world. And if you are listening now, carried by the weight of these immortal tales, take a moment to subscribe to Truth by Philosophers, for what we are uncovering is not just history. It is the living fire of myth itself. The war began, as so many Greek myths do, with a choice, with desire, with jealousy. At the wedding of Peleus and Thetis, mortals chosen to parent a hero, the gods gathered to celebrate. But one goddess was not invited, Eris, the goddess of strife. Furious at her exclusion, she hurled a golden apple into the feast, inscribed with the words, "To the fairest." Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite each claimed it. None would yield, and so they turned to a mortal judge, Paris, Prince of Troy. Each goddess offered him a bribe. Hera promised power, Athena promised wisdom and victory, Aphrodite promised the love of the most beautiful woman in the world, Helen of Sparta. Paris chose Aphrodite, and with her promise, he seduced Helen, carrying her away from her husband Menelaus. Thus, the spark was lit, an insult to honor, a theft of beauty, a choice that would plunge nations into war. The Greeks assembled 1,000 ships. Agamemnon, brother of Menelaus, became their commander. Odysseus, cunning king of Ithaca, tried to avoid the war by feigning madness, but was discovered. Achilles, greatest warrior of the Greeks, was drawn from hiding, though his mother Thetis knew his fate, that if he fought at Troy, he would gain eternal glory but die young. This was the Greek vision of heroism, not the pursuit of comfort or safety, but the pursuit of kleos, immortal fame. The war raged for 10 long years. On the plain of Troy, men clashed in violence, but above them gods quarreled as well. Hera and Athena aided the Greeks, while Aphrodite and Apollo supported Troy. Zeus himself swayed between sides, bound by promises and prophecy. The Iliad, Homer's epic, does not tell the whole war, but a single moment within it, the rage of Achilles. When Agamemnon dishonored him by seizing his prize, Achilles withdrew from battle, and without him, the Greeks faltered. In his absence, his closest companion, Patroclus, donned his armor and fell at the hands of Hector, Prince of Troy. Stricken with grief, Achilles returned to the battlefield, his wrath unstoppable. He slew Hector and dragged his body around the walls of Troy, an act both of vengeance and of desecration. And yet, here is the essence of Greek myth. Even in this rage, there is humanity. When Hector's father, King Priam, came to Achilles in the night, begging for his son's body, Achilles wept with him. He saw in Priam not an enemy but a father. This moment, two men, enemies by fate, united in grief, is perhaps the most human passage in all of myth. For the Greeks, greatness was not only in strength, but in the recognition of suffering, the awareness that all men, even heroes, are bound by mortality. The war ended not with a battle, but with a trick, the Trojan horse. Odysseus, ever cunning, devised it. The Greeks pretended to retreat, leaving behind a giant wooden horse as an offering. The Trojans, believing the war was over, brought it within their walls. At night, Greek soldiers hidden inside emerged, opening the gates for their army. Troy burned. Priam was slain. Hector's son hurled from the walls, and the women of Troy taken as slaves. Thus ended the city beloved of Apollo, proof that even the proudest can fall. Yet the war's end was not the end of the story. For the Greeks believed that no man, no hero, no city escapes the weight of consequences. Agamemnon returned home only to be murdered by his wife Clytemnestra. In vengeance for the daughter he sacrificed to launch the ships to Troy. Menelaus reclaimed Helen, but their reunion was shadowed by years of betrayal. And Odysseus began his long, tortured journey home. The Odyssey is not just an adventure, it is a meditation on perseverance, on the human struggle against time, against fate, against longing. For 10 years Odysseus wandered. He blinded the Cyclops Polyphemus, escaped the enchantments of Circe, resisted the siren's call, descended into the underworld, and endured the wrath of Poseidon. Always he longed for Ithaca, for Penelope, for home, and Penelope in turn became the symbol of endurance, weaving and unweaving her loom to keep suitors at bay. Faithful to the husband she refused to believe was dead. When Odysseus at last returned, disguised as a beggar, he found his home overrun. With his son Telemachus at his side, he struck down the suitors, reclaimed his place, and embraced his wife. The Odyssey is a story of return, but more than that, it is a story of identity. Odysseus's trials were not only external, they were internal, shaping who he was, testing his cunning, his patience, his endurance. For the Greeks, to live was to struggle, and to struggle was to become. But Greek mythology does not end with victory. It ends with decline. The heroes of Troy did not live happily ever after. They fell into tragedy, into madness, into oblivion. Achilles was killed by Paris's arrow, guided by Apollo, his heel, the one mortal spot on his body, pierced. Ajax, maddened by shame, fell on his sword. The line of Agamemnon ended in blood. Even Odysseus in later myths wandered again, restless until death. This decline was no accident. The Greeks believed in cycles of ages, the age of gold, of silver, of bronze, of heroes, and finally of iron, the age in which they themselves lived. Each age was lesser than the one before. The age of heroes was glorious, but even it ended in ruin, leaving only stories. And so, Greek mythology is not simply a celebration of power, it is a warning. Every greatness carries its fall. Every triumph is temporary. Even the gods themselves are not eternal, for prophecy spoke of their end too, of a day when Zeus would be dethroned, when Olympus would fall. Why then did the Greeks tell these stories? Why did they fill their world with flawed gods, tragic heroes, and inevitable decline? Because myth was their philosophy. Through myth, they confronted the truths that philosophy would later systematize, that power corrupts, that suffering is inevitable, that fate is inescapable, but that within fate lies the chance to choose how to live. To the Greeks, the measure of a man was not how long he lived, but how he faced his destiny. Achilles chose a short life of glory rather than a long life of obscurity. Odysseus chose endurance, cunning, and the long road home. Hercules chose redemption through struggle. Each story was not merely entertainment, it was instruction in the art of being human. And so the entirety of Greek mythology, from chaos to cosmos, from gods to men, is a mirror of fear and hope, of violence and beauty, of despair and courage. When they spoke of Zeus, they spoke of authority and its dangers. When they spoke of Hera, of jealousy's fire. When they spoke of Aphrodite, of desire's power. When they told of Achilles, they told of rage, of Odysseus, of cunning, of Prometheus, of defiance. Every myth is a piece of human experience carved into story, given the shape of gods and monsters so that it could be remembered. And here is the final truth: mythology never truly ends. The Greeks believed their heroes passed into legend, their gods into story, but their lessons lived on. Today, when we speak of hubris, of tragic flaws, of fate, of catharsis, we are still speaking the language of Greek myth. We still tell their stories in new forms, still return to their heroes for meaning, for myth is not the past, it is eternal. As you close this journey through the entire story of Greek mythology, remember, these tales were never meant only to explain the world outside. They were meant to explain the world within, the chaos in our souls, the wars we wage in our hearts, the journeys we take toward meaning. And if these myths have moved you, if you see in them not only gods and heroes but reflections of your own struggles, then like this video and subscribe to Truth by Philosophers, because here, together, we continue the tradition the Greeks began, seeking truth through story, finding philosophy in myth, and reminding ourselves that though the gods may be gone, the human spirit endures. This, then, is the entire story of Greek mythology, not merely a history of gods and heroes, but the greatest mirror ever crafted of the human condition. And as long as we tell it, as long as we listen, we are keeping alive not only the memory of ancient Greece, but the eternal search for wisdom,